Okay. Well, I think we'll make a start if that's all right, Sophia.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our lovely free event with Sophia Bennett, who will be talking about her latest book, The Windsor Knot. Here we are. Sophia has written several award-winning books for teenagers before turning to adult mysteries. She lives in London and has been a royal watcher for years, but is keen to stress that these are works of fiction. The Queen, to the best of her knowledge, does not secretly solve mysteries. Wouldn't it be lovely? The format for this afternoon is that not only will I be in conversation with Sophia, but we're going to be doing 3 polls. So this is new for us. And if you look at your taskbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see polling. So you will be asked to do something with this in a minute, but it's terribly easy and we'll talk you through it. So just be aware of that. There'll also be an opportunity to ask questions. And again, if you go to the toolbar, there's the Q&A button on the taskbar. So you can type in your questions to Sophia and she'll be taking questions. I'll be putting them to her later on. So I think we're kind of set. So before we do the first poll, I'm just going to read you a little bit just to set the scene, and then we'll do our first poll, if that's all right. So the morning after a dinner party at Windsor Castle, 89-year-old Queen Elizabeth is shocked to discover that one of her guests has been found murdered in his room with a rope around his neck. When the police begin to suspect her loyal servants, Her Majesty knows they are looking in the wrong place. For the Queen has been living an extraordinary double life ever since her teenage years. Away from the public eye, she has had a brilliant knack for solving crimes. With her household's happiness on the line, her secret must not get out. Her secret must not get out. Can the Queen and her trusted secretary, Rosie, catch the killer without getting caught themselves? So we're going to do the first poll now. So Lara's going to help me. So the first poll. So what we have to do is, okay, so we've launched the poll. So I don't know if you can all see that. So basically, so they have to tap on the polling button. Is that correct? So now it says, how many corgis does the Queen currently have? So it's a good question to kick off with. So you have to put your answer in, and then we'll see from the blue bar across. Ah, a lot of good answers here. Very good.
I can't vote, which is really sad because I know the answer.
So that's not fair. Okay, so I think that's it. Everyone's had a chance. So we'll end the poll now and we'll share the result.
Ah.
Can you see that, Sophia?
So I can. Yeah, I'm very impressed. Very impressed.
You're obviously all royal watchers too. So most of you are correct, in as much as the corgi doesn't have any, the Queen doesn't have any corgis at the moment.
Not anymore.
No, so not anymore. So that, yeah, who'd have thought, eh? So that's good. Okay, so do I take this off? Now, that's a good one. Okay, so first of all, Sophia, welcome to Chorleywood Bookshop and our event this afternoon. So thank you so much for joining us. Can you start by telling us a little bit about your brilliant book?
Well, it's an idea that I had a couple of years ago, and we might talk about this later, but it occurred to me that the Queen is really well placed, if she wanted to solve crimes that happen in her palaces and castles and that kind of thing. And so in this is the first book of the series, The Windsor Knot, and I decided that I knew really early on I was going to make a series of them, but I knew I wanted it to start at Windsor Castle, partly because her surname is Windsor, and partly because it's her favourite place to be. And partly because when she's there, she's often kind of a little bit on holiday, so I don't have to fit in quite as many public engagements around her life. Because the thing is, the Queen that I write about is the Queen. She's not a kind of fictionalized version. She's as close as I could get to the actual Queen in 2016. And I also like the title of this. I thought it lent itself quite nicely to a crime story. So yeah, so the Queen uses her intelligence and her experience and her access to any expert she wants to talk to notice when something is a bit off in her world and to secretly solve it. And she has to do it secretly because she's got MI5 and the police and, you know, who are lots of sort of official people to solve things for her, and she'll upset them if they think that, you know, she's secretly doing their jobs for them. So she has to do it without ever looking as if she's doing it, and that is why we don't know that she's secretly a brilliant detective.
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, you've previously written award-winning young adult novels. What made you turn to crime and write detective fiction?
Well, various things did. I'd done 10 books for young adults, and it's a really tough market. There's a lot of talk about it, but the thing about writing for teenagers is teenagers can read anything. So, you know, they can read Jane Eyre, War and Peace, Dostoevsky, something that you've written for them, anything that they like. So it's a really competitive market, and I found it was getting harder and harder to write in. And also, I love writing about creative subjects, and I've written about art and music and modeling and fashion and kind of all the things that I wanted to do, I think. And I decided it was time for a fresh start. And I had grown up reading detective stories. So, you know, I adored Agatha Christie and Dorothy L. Sayers growing up. And an American writer called Rex Stout I loved, and Ellery Queen mysteries. And that's what I grew up on. So I wanted to write some of those. And that's what I wrote in my unpublished 10 years when I was trying to be a writer. So I went back to doing what I loved. And it's really satisfying to do. You know, you have to create a very tightly wound plot. And I like doing that very much. And then there's just the fun of kind of writing it out.
So what do you think of the term, you know, or genre, cozy crime? Do you think it's a fair description of the Windsor Knot?
I do think it's a fair description. As a term, I don't really like it. But I think, I mean, the more I think about it is there's the two ends of the spectrum of crime, isn't it? There's the kind of the thriller end, which I think is where the world is ultimately a really dangerous place. And you're just kind of hoping that the characters that you're rooting for survive in it. And then there's my end, and the stories that I've read more, which is the world is fundamentally a safe place that a bad thing has happened in. And it's just up to the detective to make everything right again. And as I say, I mean, that's kind of the world that I enjoy living in more. I really love reading thrillers. But particularly this year, I mean, it's like I feel like I need some reassurance every now and again. So I'm glad that that's the kind of thing that I'm writing. A world where somebody in control means well and tries to do the best they can to make the world a better place. So yeah, that's the world I enjoy.
That's fair enough. As you say, we've all had a bit of a difficult year this year. So the Queen as a detective, you know, it's a fantastic idea. How did you come up with that?
Well, I don't think anyone watching is going to be super surprised to know that. Oh, by the way, sorry, I'm just noticing that somebody from Rickmansworth has said, that we see the results. You and I do, and viewers don't. So a third of you all correctly guessed about the corgis, by the way, or knew about the corgis, that the Queen has no corgis, and then other people guessed between 1 and 5. So yeah, we'll need to tell you what you said. Yeah, we're learning as we go along. So thank you for that question. So yes, I was driving up to a writing retreat to write a different detective story, which has not been written now, and I was thinking about The Crown, series 2 of The Crown, which I was really enjoying. I really liked the early series. That was what I really enjoyed. And nevertheless, I didn't agree entirely with the way the Queen was portrayed in one of the scenes. She was picking up a model soldier on a battlefield and putting it in the wrong place. And my father has met her a few times because he was in the Gurkhas for many years in the army, and she's really, really fond of the Gurkhas. And so they've met various times. And he'd said, I mean, he's you know, if he hadn't been an army officer, he'd have been a military historian. And he says the Queen's really good at it. And she understands military history, and she wouldn't have put that soldier down in the wrong place, I just thought. And that just got me thinking that I know her really well. and I would love to write about her. And I followed her since I was 11. And that was a long time ago. And then I got to thinking how she would notice stuff that was going on around her, and how she's kind of underestimated by a lot of the people around her, I think. And this particular thing she has where everybody is always looking at her. So she has this unique perspective out where everybody's kind of looking in. So she must see things that other people don't see. And then I thought she's an expert on loads of stuff like racing and her art collection, and as I say, and military history and medals and constitutional history, and there's just loads of stuff she knows a lot about. So I just thought, wow, I could write a load of books where she was a detective. And as soon as I had that idea, I just thought, I've got to do it, really. But I was really worried about whether I could do it well or not, because, you know, we all know the Queen. So I think if somebody were to do it badly, we would all be annoyed. So I just didn't want to be that person.
I think we all think we know the Queen.
yeah.
The sort of small bit of information we get, so we don't really.
Well, that's one of the things I love about her, is she's amazingly good at being mysterious. After nearly 100 years in the public eye, she's still really mysterious, and that's a real trick to have up your sleeve,
isn't it? Yeah. And did you always imagine doing a whole series of books?
From very quickly, yes. I remember I got to the place where I was going to be doing this writing retreat, and I was staying in a friend's house, and I was sitting in there. I was up in the just north of Oxford, and I was looking out of the window, and I thought, I'd love to write one in Balmoral, but I'd love to write one at Sandringham, but I'd love to write one on the Royal Yacht Britannia, and I'd love to do one set in the British Embassy in Paris, and maybe she's trying on Dior dresses in the meantime. And so I had ideas for about 12 books really quickly, and then 20 books. Didn't take that long.
Yeah. So how many are you lined up to do?
I'm lined up to do 5. So I have a 5-book deal in the UK for Bonnier, and a 3-book deal in the US, and a 4-book deal in Germany, and because everybody loves the Queen. But I want them to let me do more when I've done those. Whether or not they let me do them, I will kind of do them anyway. Yeah, I want to write hundreds, well, not hundreds, but I want to write 20 of them. Yeah,
you've got lifetime work ahead of you. Yeah, absolutely. And so has the book been published in the States yet?
No, it's coming out in the States in March. And I'm quite jealous because, well, in the UK, the audiobook, by the way, is read by Samantha Bond, which I think is quite amazing. And she does it really well. And in the US, it's read by an English reader called Jane Copeland, and she's really good. And I'm dying to listen to it. Everyone's saying she's done a great job, and I haven't heard it yet. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, so it comes out there in March, and that'll be really interesting because there are lots of royal lovers in the US. So I'm keen to see what they think.
I think it's going to be so popular. Oh, I'm sure it is. So how did you get into the mode to write, the different characters' voices, sort of going from the Queen to Prince Philip, it's all very different, isn't it?
I don't know, really. I think I just projected. I have a really visual imagination, so I do picture it second by second. Whatever I'm writing about, I really picture that I'm there, I'm in the room, it's all happening around me. And so it was really easy to imagine the characters doing their thing. And again, we know them so well, these famous people, when they come in. So when Prince Philip came in, I think, so he's in his late 90s. He's about the age that my great-grandfather would have been. And I did know my great-grandfather. And so I kind of pictured him a bit like, I pictured him a bit like my grandfather, I guess. And that kind of war generation who are sort of quite very stiff upper lip about things, but also have a great sense of humour on the side. I didn't find it that hard to slip into, and it was really fun to imagine what they would say to each other behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. So would this be a good opportunity for you to do your reading?
Okay, let's see what people think. I always enjoy doing this one. I'm going to do a little reading from chapter 2, so it's quite early on. So the story that happens is the Queen is holding a dine and sleep at Windsor Castle. And lots of people ask me, are dine and sleeps a real thing? And they totally are. I did not make this up. The Queen, a few times a year, holds a dinner party for about 20 people at Windsor Castle. It's very private. She can invite whoever she likes, and she likes to invite Tim Peake, the astronaut, alongside Delia Smith and Helen Mirren and the Archbishop of Canterbury, and, you know, whoever she asks will come. So it must be amazing to be there. So there's been one of these evenings. And there is a very Russian themed evening, and there's been a really fantastic guy who brought in to play the piano. And he's played the piano and afterwards danced with the Queen. And then he is found the following morning strangled in his bedroom. And it's in very embarrassing circumstances. He's found naked with the dressing gown cord wrapped around his neck. And it looks like he's been up to something. And the Queen is upset. Philip was full of the news when he arrived to share a coffee with her after lunch. Lilibet, did you hear the man was nude? Yes, actually, I did. Strung up like a Tory MP. There's a word for it. What is it? Autosex something. Autoerotic asphyxiation, the Queen said grimly. She had Googled it on her iPad. That's the bugger. Do you remember Buffy? One did indeed recall the 7th Earl of Wandle, an old friend who had been rather partial to the practice back in the 50s by all accounts. Back then it had seemed practically de rigueur among a certain set. What the butler saw, eh? Philip said. Had to rescue the blighter on many an occasion, apparently. Buffy was hardly an oil painting, even with his clothes on. What was he thinking, she wondered. My dear, I try not to imagine Buffy's sex life. No, I mean the young Russian, Brodsky. Well, that's obvious, Philip said, gesturing around him. You know what people are like in this place. They come here, decide it's the pinnacle of their bloody existence and need to let off steam. The high jinks that go on when they think we're not looking. Poor bastard. He dropped his voice sympathetically. Didn't think it through. Last thing you want is to be discovered in a royal palace with your ghoulies out. Philip! No, I mean it. No wonder everyone's keeping it hush-hush. That and protecting your fragile nerves. The Queen threw him a look. They forget I've lived through a world war, that Ferguson girl, and you in the Navy. And yet they think you'll need smelling salts if they so much as hint at anything fruity. All they see is a little old lady in a hat. He grinned as she frowned. That last remark was true and very useful and rather sad. Don't worry, Cabbage, they love that little old lady. He rose stiffly from his chair. Don't forget, I'm off to Scotland later. The salmon's spectacular this year, Dickie says. Need anything? Fudge? Nicola Sturgeon's head on a platter? No, thank you. When will you be back? A week or so. I'll be in good time for your birthday. Dickie's going to stuff up the atmosphere and fly me in his jet. The Queen nodded. Philip tended to run his own diary these days. Years ago, she had found it rather heartbreaking when he disappeared off with who knew who to do God knew what, leaving her in charge. A part of her was jealous, too, of the freedom, the self-determination. But he always came back, bringing with him a burst of energy that cut through the corridors of power like a brisk sea breeze. She had learned to be grateful. Actually, she said, as he bent arthritically to drop a kiss on her forehead, I wouldn't mind some fudge. Your wish is my command. He grinned, making her heart melt with clockwork precision, and strode to the door. So that's Philip.
Brilliant, brilliant. Oh,
Thank you.
Excellent. That's such fun, such fun. Yeah, it's good. You got the accents really. Oh, I mean, obviously what didn't come in there was this character Rosie, who we get to about later. I mean, she's an absolutely brilliant character, isn't she? And which I know when people get to read the book, they'll discover for themselves. But where did the inspiration for Rosie come from?
Me. Rosie is the Queen's assistant private secretary. In real life, the Queen has a private secretary and a deputy private secretary and 2 assistant private secretaries. And they, by the way, have secretaries. It's very much yes, Minister, from that point of view. The private secretary is not a secretary, but his secretary is a secretary. But anyway, Rosie, I left out most of them because it was too complicated, but Rosie is an assistant private secretary, and that is the job that I interviewed for in 1999 and really wanted, and didn't get, obviously, because I became a writer instead. And so a lot of it is wish fulfillment from me. Rosie is a sidekick, so she is the person the Queen can send off to find things out and secretly report back. And it turns out that there's a whole kind of club of assistant private secretaries who've been doing this since the 1950s. But Rosie is of Nigerian heritage, and she's nearly 6 foot tall, very much not like me. And she wears high heels, and they take her to over 6 foot. And she's great in a fight. And she's an ex-army officer, and also an ex-banker. So yeah, Rosie's got a lot going on, and she's really good at looking after herself. So yeah, she's a joy to write. She's just total wish fulfillment for me.
Yes, that's great. And so would you say there's a feminist theme to the book? And if so, were you intending there to be?
I hope there is.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, most of my teenage books were read by girls. I wouldn't say written for, but they were written about girls, and girls tend to read those books. And they're all about girls discovering their inner power in an age when their confidence just takes a constant battering from all the perfection that they see around them. So yes, I am a feminist, and I liked the idea. And also, you know, I'm in my 50s now, and older women can, you know, just as you think you've reached the height of your powers, older women can start to be overlooked. So I'm really interested in the idea of an older woman, really holding her own. And yeah, people don't always take her seriously, and they do patronize her and pat her on the head a bit, and explain what blogs are to her and that kind of thing, which she knows perfectly well. And I like the idea of her just quietly getting on with solving crimes. And I like the idea of her and Rosie doing it together, because Rosie does take her seriously, and lots of the men in the Queen's life adore her, and really want to serve her well, but they don't listen to her the way Rosie does. So yeah, and I'm hoping that's one of the themes that comes through.
Mm-hmm. And so how authentic is everything in the book? You know, do you take liberties, you know, bend the truth?
I decided when I started writing that I would. It's not a documentary. I've written 10 books before this, and I've learned that, you know, sometimes you just have to go where the story takes you. Obviously, I've created a murder at Windsor Castle where, as far as I know, there was none. So yeah. But then I found I was curious about what the Queen would have really been doing. So I set it around her 90th birthday, and I was interested in, well, what would she have been doing the weeks before? And I discovered that the court circular, which appears in the Times every day, is online now. So you can actually find out what she has done officially every day, all the way back. And then I had this kind of secondary kind of plot line thing going on of what she was really up to. And then I just found I loved the challenge of making everything as true as possible. So I think there'll be a lot more authenticity in the book than people might expect. So like when I say Kylie Minogue's coming to sing at the Queen's birthday, yeah, no, she did that. That really happened. You know, and you find that little detail. So if the Queen's having a, you know, chocolate biscuit cake, then that's what she really likes. And yes, she loves a gin and dubonnet early in the evening. She doesn't have one at lunchtime the way some people think she does. She does write her diary at night, which doesn't get read by anybody and won't for many years to come. She does love Dick Francis novels. She does meet up with Edward and Sophie and Louise of a Sunday because they live nearby. So yeah, if I could possibly get the details right, her clothing, if I say she's wearing a pink suit, she was wearing a pink suit, because why not get it right if you can? So I like that about it. And I'm lucky in a way that I can make the books more authentic than The Crown in some ways, because Peter Morgan is trying to tell the story of a whole decade, and you know, he's only got a certain amount of time, so he has to sort of mash things together. But I'm only telling the story of a couple of months, so I don't need to do that. So I can make things happen when they did really happen. So I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
Mm. And sort of related to that, how much research did you have to do, and how did you do it? I mean, how do you know that she drinks gin and dubonnet, and she writes the diary and all that? How do you know?
Yeah, it's a mixture of things. So sometimes it's reading biographies. Sometimes it's reading lovely books like The Other Side of the Coin by Angela Kelly, who's her dresser, which is a really good book that came out, I think only came out last year, that I really loved. Anne Glenn Connor's book, Lady in Waiting, fascinating insight into how people of that generation think and talk to each other. There's lots of little bits and pieces out there. Ex-royal servants often talk. So there's a chef called Darren O'Grady, I think his name is, and he's spoken a lot about what the Queen likes to eat when and where, and I've used a lot of that. And I know people who know people. So I know people who've worked at Windsor Castle, and I know people who've been in some of the situations I've described. So I can say to them, you know, what would they call that room, or how would the Queen address this person, or what would you do if, kind of out of hours, you bumped into the Queen in a corridor? How formal would you have to be? And I love hearing what they have to say about that. So yeah, all sorts of different ways in to discover what goes on. And there's one scene in chapter 32, which is a private medal ceremony. And it's from two sources. So one is a friend of our family who knows a lot about official medal ceremonies and how they work. And I had the rule book in front of me. And another is somebody whose father worked for the Queen for 17 years, very closely. And this scene happened to him at Windsor Castle in a similar way. So I kind of melded those two things together. So yeah, wherever I can get hold of information, I do. I love it.
Did you want to share some slides with us now? Would that be a good time to...
I'll give it a go. Let's see. This is not my strong point. So bring on the tech. Let's see how this goes.
Absolutely charming.
Yeah, it's none of those things there. That is just so typical, isn't it? Right. Okay, if I do this, is it showing any of that? Can you see any pictures?
Not yet, no.
No.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I had to press share, which is not unreasonable, I guess. Can I go back? Wait a minute. Here we go. So, first of all, by the way, can I just say thank you to my publishers for giving me such a beautiful book, such a beautiful physical book. It's you can't really see from these pictures, but it's kind of bubbly, and it's got hidden corgis on the end papers, and I just adore it. But yeah, this all started in 1977. So this is me with my father. We'd been living in Hong Kong, and we'd come back, I think, the year before, and he'd been out there with the Gurkhas. And as you can see, I'm really happy with my brother to be in London for the Queen's Silver Jubilee that summer in 77. And it was a rainy day, but we went and stood outside Buckingham Palace, and she came onto the balcony and we all cheered. And that year, somebody gave me this book because they knew I was interested in costume. And it's called The Queen's Clothes. This is my copy, which I've still got. And it's all about how Norman Hartnell designed many of her formal outfits early on in her reign, and how complicated it was to dress her, because she had to be fashionable but not too fashionable, and she had to stand out but not look too showy, and her dresses had to reflect the emblems of the countries she was going to, and her hems had to be weighted so they didn't fly up in the breeze. And I try and get this sort of sense into the book, I think, because I've always been fascinated by it, that she looks like she's got this huge life of privilege, which she has, but it's also really complicated to get it right. And it involves getting all these little details right. And a lot of that kind of holds her back a bit. So yeah, I wanted to write about that as well. But that year was the first time my father accompanied her on a visit. And so I think they're probably in Chester, or maybe Blackpool. And he's the one with the sword, showing her about. But he met her other times. There she is meeting my mother in the red jacket. And in the middle, there's she and my father taking the Sultan of Brunei round the Tower of London, as you do. And usually in these pictures, which, by the way, were up in the downstairs loo in my parents' house, so that's where we got them from, she's usually smiling in these photographs, and I just like to think my father makes her laugh when they're together. I hope so, anyway. So she's planting a tree or something at the Gurkha Museum, I think. And then that door, I took this photograph last summer of Buckingham Palace as I was walking by, and yeah, that is the door through which I walked to have my interview to work for her, that I didn't get. And I took these photographs the same summer at Windsor Castle while I was finishing off writing the book. And the one with the guardsman in is a picture of the door to the round tower. You can see the round tower in the other picture. And also the Norman Tower, which nobody ever talks about. And the Norman Tower is where the governor lives, and it's where a crucial scene happens in the book. And that was, again, one of those places where I managed to get some sort of background research from somebody who's lived there. And the Round Tower is where the detective team go in my book to solve the murder. Not very efficiently, has to be said. This is my website, by the way, so if people need more information, they can find me here. Yeah, and I think that's it. No, I now need to stop sharing. Can I do this? It's going to be interesting. Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. Lovely insight. So what rank was your father? What was his sort of...
He made it up to general in the end. He was director of infantry towards the end of his career. And then he went into the NHS and he ran hospitals. And now he's in Somerset, working his way through lockdown.
Oh, yes, yes. Shall we do another poll?
Oh, let's. Oh, I'm glad Melissa likes the cover.
Yes, she loves the design. Okay, so just ready for the next one. There we go. So, who is your favourite detective investigator out of this list?
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answers here, obviously. I'm just always really interested to know. I put this list together, which is why it's got Columbo on it, because he's definitely one of my favourites.
Oh, it's not many people's though at the moment.
Oh, really? Damn.
Can you see that? Can you see the...
I can't see the answers now. I can only see the questions until you share them.
Oh, before we share them, yeah. Slightly predictable, I would say. Oh, I don't know though. Oh, neck and neck. It's all...
Oh, exciting.
It is, isn't it? Right, okay. Oh, no, it's moving now. Is everyone done? Okay. Oh, gosh, actually. Yes, that's really interesting. Okay, so we'll try and share this with everyone. Right, that's the end. Share. Right, can everybody see that now? Can you see that, Sophia?
I can see it, yes. I don't know if other people can.
Somebody put in the chat if you can see, if the audience can see. Or put in the chat if you can't see. Raised hands. Okay, what does that mean?
Can see it. Lovely. Oh yeah, lovely. That's good. So there we go. Oh, so good old Miss Marple. Fantastic.
Yeah, neck and neck with Hercule, and then a close third, Vera Stanhope.
Vera. Oh, I love Anne Cleves. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we did an event with her a few weeks back as well.
Yes.
So, yeah, that was lovely.
I bet. Yes. What I really love about the TV Vera is that the producer of that, who is married to Peter Capaldi, I love my trivia, and the producer really fought to have them filmed where they're set, and they weren't going to be, apparently, because it was quite expensive to shoot them there. And I think that really adds to the atmosphere of it all, and it wouldn't be the same without it. And so, yeah, if ever I sold the TV rights or the film rights to my books, I'd want somebody who loved them with that kind of same passion of, I want to make them as good as they can possibly be.
Oh, it has. And on that note, has there been any interest? Or
yes, there has been.
Oh, exciting!
I haven't accepted any offers yet, but yeah, people are interested. Yes,
wow.
But that's the thing. I'm waiting for someone to come along, like Peter Capaldi's wife, and say, I want to do it like this, and and then I know that, particularly Rosie, this lovely assistant private secretary character, I want to know that somebody really gets her and wants to do her justice too.
Safe hands, yeah. Well, we've got one more poll. Perhaps we'll just do one more poll. It's fun. We're all learning here with the polling. Okay. This is the last poll, but just a little bit of fun here.
Oh, great.
So what is Chorleywood Bookshop's best-selling book of 2020 so far?
Oh, I know what I would guess.
I've forgotten the answer.
Yeah. Can I just say, one of my book club books was A Gentleman in Moscow, and I would never have read it if it hadn't been a book club book, and I adored it, and I often think back to it. It's a wonderful book.
Yes, it's a good book for lockdown, isn't it, as well?
Yes, it is. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, it's sort of a different sort of lockdown, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Any one of these could have won. That's the thing. Anyone. Yeah, okay, right. Is everyone finished? Okay, so we'll end poll. Is that right, Laura?
Yeah.
And share results.
Yes. Interesting. I haven't read the Victoria Hislop, but it does look fantastic.
You did a great event with her as well, so that was good. Okay, so the answer is, which only 19% of you got right, is actually Where the Crawdads Sing, Delia Owens. That's our best-selling.
Ah.
A phenomenal success. As have all the others, I have to say. These are obviously our top 5, but yeah, the Crawdads.
So
yeah, the Crawdads is certainly our best-selling book. It was such a brilliant read. They're all such brilliant reads. So yeah. Okay, right. So I think we'll stop this. Yeah, stop sharing. Okay. Hold on. Okay, that's brilliant. So I think you've touched on the books in the news series. Is there anything you can tell us about the next one and when the next book is going to come out?
Yes. So it'll be one a year, and they'll be coming out each November. So book 2 is written. I'm waiting to get the edits back. And it's set in Buckingham Palace this time, and it's got a fantastic cover that people can see online if they want to have a look, or on my website as well. And it's called A 3-Dog Problem. And that is taken from the idea that when Sherlock Holmes had a really difficult problem, he would smoke 3 pipes to get through it. And the Queen takes 3 dogs for a walk. And in fact, in 2016, she had 3 dogs because by the time the book is set, one of the corgis had died, so she was down to 2 doggies and a corgi. So when she's really struggling to solve the murder, she takes the 3 dogs for a walk in Buckingham Palace gardens. And actually, I'm really sad because I went round Buckingham Palace last year when I was researching, and thank goodness I did because I couldn't this year. And the gardens are beautiful, and I really appreciated all the trees. And because I was trying to talk about the autumn colour, I really looked into them. And a lot of them are having to be chopped down this year because they've got some kind of awful beetle disease. And I'm sure they'll replace them, but there's 2 particular trees that feature in book 2, the kissing plane trees, I call them, planted by Victoria and Albert. And they're going, so I'll be really sad to see that happen. But in the book, there is a body in the swimming pool. So that's the murder that she's got to solve this time.
Oh, that's brilliant. So the questions are beginning to come in. So one here is, how much is the book, and is it coming out in paperback? Well, the book is only just come out in hardback, so it's £12.99. And we've got these lovely, adorable signed plates from Sophia, which have got these lovely little corgis on. So yeah, it makes a great Christmas present. So yeah, we've got lots of these in the shop. So just let us know if you'd like some. We can post them out, or you can come and collect them from the shop. Yeah, the good news is for us that we're opening the shop tomorrow, both shops tomorrow.
Oh,
so at
congratulations! I bet you're thrilled.
Oh, absolutely delighted. It's been quite tortuous, but we've managed to keep going, and it's been better this lockdown than the first lockdown. So the supply chain, everything's been much easier, but it will be brilliant to be actually open our doors, and we're extending our opening hours, and just to allow people to come in safely and over a longer period of time. So as we hopefully will avoid queuing and all that sort of thing. And it will be coming out in paperback, but not just yet, as what tends to happen.
Not for a while. Yeah.
Books come out in hardback, and this is such a brilliantly priced one, and as you say, is a beautiful thing to behold, isn't it, with these lovely end papers. So yeah, it's lovely, it's really lovely. Make a great present, as books generally do at the moment. I mean, with lockdown and COVID, what could be better really than a good book? And a good
my pile is about this high at the moment of things that I need to read. Can't wait to get around to.
Me too, but I really love this one. It's such fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's really good. So I don't know if we've got any more questions. Please just type them in if there's anything else you need to know about the book or Sophia and her writing. So I mean, I was really interested to hear about this dine and sleep was a real thing. I mean, I had absolutely no idea that was a thing. It does sound like you made it up.
I know, it does sound like I made it up, doesn't it? I was with my at the time little boy, so he'd been about 7, and I'd taken him to Windsor Castle because he missed a school trip, and so a dutiful mother, I took him round, and he's now 14 and way taller than me. So it was a while ago. And anyway, we got to the semi-state dining room, and by that stage, I was Windsor Castled up to here. But somebody said, "Oh, what's this used for?" And it was explained that this is where the Queen holds her dine and sleeps, and what they are, and the fact that after the dinner you stay over the night and you have breakfast there the next morning, and that was what really appealed to me. You know, it's not that you like Buckingham Palace, you don't kind of swoop in and swoop out again, but you actually stay overnight. And presumably you get to sort of see the Queen and Prince Philip around a bit the next morning doing their thing. So ever since then, I just wanted to do one, and I probably never will. So, you know, at least in fiction, I've done it now.
So Carol's asked, what's your view of the latest series of The Crown? And do you think it should have a warning message before it is shown? Or is it a reasonable representation of the royal family?
It's a tricky one for me to answer because I haven't watched it yet, because I find it really uncomfortable. And I do find that I wish it did let people know that some of it is fictionalized. I mean, I know that that Peter Morgan has done a massive amount of research, and he's got access to people who used to work in the royal household and all of that kind of thing. But I think he can oversimplify things sometimes because he's telling this big arc of a story. And I think it's a bit mean for people who are alive, whose children are alive, and you know they're living their lives, to be presented like that must be really tough. And I'm kind of doing it myself, but in a kind of way, I think. So yeah, I'm struggling with what I'm hearing about this latest season. But having said that, I loved seasons 1 and 2, and I haven't seen this one yet, so I might be wrong. I might just be picking things up from what other people have said, and it might be completely fine. What I do love, though, is The Windsors, the satirical comedy show. I think it's absolutely hysterical. So yeah, that's my favourite.
So Joe's asking, are the guests to the Diamond Sleeps sworn to secrecy?
I doubt it. I think they probably know that if they ever want to go back, then the less they say, the more likely that is. I haven't really seen big reports from people about what goes on. So I imagine that they don't have to sign a piece of paper or anything, I'm guessing. But it's just kind of, you know, like, you might not want to talk about this too much. Yeah.
And do people get invited back again? I mean, have you?
Yeah, I think a few. Yeah, I mean, I've sort of imagined that there are various regulars, like the racing manager and the Provost of Eton who lives nearby, and the Archbishop. But I think, yeah, I mean, I think probably if you are entertaining and discreet, then you might well get invited back. Yeah.
So Melissa asks, what was the hardest scene to write?
Oh, that's a good question. I think in some ways there's a scene where the Queen goes to see where the body was, and it's gone by that stage. And what she actually sees is a room that she finds it very sad that it's just so empty. And that was kind of emotionally quite hard to write. In some ways, the easiest one to write was the one where Rosie gets into a spot of bother on the London Underground. And my father helped me out with that, with how somebody would do a knife attack and how somebody would respond. So that was an interesting one to do. But yes, I think that moment where the Queen is looking at a place where her life ended was quite tough. Yeah, I mean, what you're saying about cozy crime earlier, Cheryl, is kind of like, I think that is the difference, that cozy crime happens within a safe world, but the crimes are still crimes. I mean, they're still horrible, violent crimes. They're bad things that happen to people. We just don't describe them in a very grisly way, but they are grisly in the world. So yeah, I do take that very seriously when I'm writing, and I try and make sure that every victim I write about is kind of represented in some way, and they're not just used as fodder for literature, but I kind of respect them, even though I made them up.
So how long did it take you to write, the first one? I mean, obviously you started on the next one, but how long did you write The Windsor Knot?
It took me about a year to get the voice right. So like that chapter I was reading out, it took me a year to find that. And it's a mixture of comedy and plotting. And then it was quite quick. Then it was about 6 months, I think. And 1 month of that was just the denouement scene, which is really complicated because the way that my denouements work in this series is it's not the Queen explaining to somebody how it was done. It's someone explaining to the Queen how it was done because she set them up to do that. And that was really, really hard to plot, but very satisfying to do. And it took about 4 goes to get that right, I think.
Yes, yeah, no, that's really interesting. So how far along in the series are you now? So you've written number 2, or you
written number 2, and I'm plotting number 3.
Wow.
Yeah, and I know it starts with a severed hand floating in the water next to Sandringham, and I know who did it and why, but I've got lots of red herrings and other things to sort out in the middle.
And do you know if the Queen's read it or read your first book? Or
I do not know, and I will never know, but I have this fantasy of them selling it at Buckingham Palace shop, and the day that happens I will know that she thinks it's okay. So I don't know, but I have sent it to one of the assistant private secretaries to give to her, and I thought that he might find that quite funny because, you know, he's got his kind of role model in the book, but also through a weird thing to do with university, it turns out that my husband is a co-godparent with one of the Queen's godchildren. So that's a bit complicated, but that's as close as I'll ever get to the Queen. But through that really slight connection, I have got the book kind of into the hands of somebody who could give it to her if they wanted to. So we'll see.
Well, I'm sure she could if she wanted to. Because it's quite a sensitive subject, isn't it? Really, you know, sort of when you start writing about the Queen, you know, I think it's quite a sensitive subject. You want to get things right, don't you? And
well, I think so. I think
offence or, you know, anything like that. So it's quite sensitive.
I think as she's gone to such great lengths to not say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing as much as she can, I did feel a huge obligation to not say the wrong thing on her behalf in a way. And again, it's why when I see these little clips of The Crown and she's scowling at Margaret Thatcher, I just think she wouldn't scowl. She might think a scowl very much, but she would never actually let it appear on her face because she would know that would send all sorts of signals that would be very undiplomatic. So yeah, I try and respect that. It's a very affectionate portrait. I really like her. So not the whole family, have to say. She's a bit of an exception, but I do really like her. So I think if she read it, she would find that it was on her side.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So thinking about your writing, do you plot out in advance? I mean, do you have post-its? Do you know, how do you do it?
I have done the post-it note plotting thing for other books, and it's brilliant. And I watched I May Destroy You this year in lockdown by Michaela Cole, and it was just extraordinary. I don't know whether you saw it, Cheryl, but it was so good. And in that, her character is writing a book, and she has post-it notes all around her bedroom, and I just thought, yeah, that's very, very good. But for this one, it's spreadsheets. Because it is quite complicated. So I do. I like to see exactly how it's all going to fit together. And because I'm mapping it onto real life events, that makes it extra tricky. And like with the book 2, I wanted the Queen to be thinking certain things like at Remembrance Day, because, you know, that's all about death. And so I thought, well, that'd be appropriate for her to be thinking about this thing. And there's the American election that's happening around the same time when Trump got elected, and I wanted certain things to be happening around that. So that just made it even more complicated for myself. Like, something's got to happen on this day so that she can be thinking about it on that day. So yeah, spreadsheets is how I do it, and it is quite plotted. But then something lovely will happen while I'm writing, that really unexpected. Like Prince Philip will walk in and say something I wasn't expecting him to say, and I like those moments. They're my favourites.
It just pops into your head.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you're sort of really with them, aren't you? Yeah, no, that's good. That's lovely. So I don't know if you've got any more questions coming up. Please do write in your questions. That'd be brilliant. Okay, so one thing when we were talking before, when we were doing our rehearsal, you were mentioning about some of the inaccuracies in The Crown, things like that trooping of the colour. I mean, shit, that was really interesting fact.
About her outfit.
Yes, you've got such an eye for detail. It's kind of wasted on me, but I think maybe because of your father's background and your attention to detail.
We're such anoraks in our family about that kind of thing. So the tripping of the colour thing, it's just a classic. My father's name is pet household thing. So Olivia Colman is wearing the Tripping of the Colour outfit, and there's a series of buttons in sets down the tunic, and she's got her sort of version of the bearskin on, and it's got a plume. And the way that the regiments work is that each regiment has a form of buttons, so there could be 2 or 3 or 4 in a group, or 5, and a coloured plume. And I can't remember which goes with which, but my father always knows. So let's say the Grenadiers are 5 buttons and a red plume, and the Welsh Guards are 4 buttons and a blue plume, and the Coldstream are 2 buttons and a white plume, that kind of thing. Anyway, so the Queen had something like, she had the buttons of the Grenadier Guards with the plume of the Welsh Guards, and on that day it was the Coldstream Guards. And yeah, just drove my father potty. And that is the kind of thing we notice, yes. And we must drive their costume people absolutely mad by peering out for that kind of thing.
But that's the sort of thing you think you could easily get right, because that's...
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't. I really don't. Yes.
Yeah, and not difficult to presumably to find that sort of detail out. So
yeah, maybe that's just the tuning that they had on the day. But I think, I mean, as I say, I hesitate to judge, but I do think that the royal family always make many mistakes in the way they treat outsiders. So anyone who isn't, literally in their immediate family, things are likely to go wrong. But I do think they try their best. I think they really genuinely try and make people feel welcome, just not always in ways that work. And I wonder whether this series has quite captured that. But yeah, I'll watch it when I can bear to. I'll watch it and see. I mean, it's tricky now because, of course, it's my job to research this stuff, and in a way, I want to see really factual stuff, but I don't want to be too influenced by somebody else's kind of fictional idea of what happened. So yeah, it's complicated.
Yes, I can understand. And Anne says, is the audiobook unabridged?
Yes.
And that's available now in this country?
Yes.
It's just, sort of in America, it's read by somebody different. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's great. I can imagine, actually, when it comes to America, I mean, Americans love the royal family, don't they, as a, broad sweeping statement. They sort of have a great fondness for our monarchy. So I'm sure the book's going to go down so well there. Yes.
I hope so. It'd be really interesting to see. Yeah.
And what about other territories? Is it sold into other, to Australia?
Yeah, it's sold to 15 other territories apart from the UK and the US. So it's coming out in Germany in January, France in May, and then Italy, Sweden, Brazil, Japan, Russia, Estonia, Czech Republic, Finland. Yeah, it's amazing.
So Alison asks, will other members of the Queen's extended family feature in future books?
They might do. Prince Harry is going to be in book 3 a bit because he was at Sandringham that Christmas. They won't have really big parts, again, because I don't think it's kind of fair on them in a way. I mean, the poor Queen is head of state and she just has to suck it up a little bit. They're being such a public figure, but yeah, they won't have huge parts, but they will be there. Yes. There are 1 or 2 who I can't really face writing about. Princess Anne has a bit of a part in book 2 because I'm a Princess Anne fan as well. So if I can find anything for her to do or say, then I'll put that in.
Oh, that's nice. Well, I'm trying to whittle it down and not be indiscreet.
Who's not going to be there?
Yeah. Yes, who you can't bear to write about.
Who lives at Windsor Castle, who features in 1 line in the book. See if you can work out who that is.
Yeah, I'm not saying a word. Yeah, you have to read the book to find out. Well, I think that's been brilliant. So if there's no more questions, I'd like to say thank you so much, Sophia. It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy this afternoon. What a lovely thing.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
And it's so good. And I mean, good news, your book actually is in our Christmas catalogue. So, so that's great. And with us opening tomorrow, we're going to have, yay.
How shiny it is. It's so lovely.
It's very tactile.
Yeah, they've done a really lovely job with it.
Yeah, no, you must be thrilled. And as I say, we've got the lovely book plates to put in, which we're not going to put on that lovely that lovely page there. I'll put them inside. So yeah, I know it will make a great present. And if I could just tell everyone that's listening this afternoon, I hope you don't mind, but we've got an event this evening with Barbara Kingsolver, the author, but she's talking about her poetry tonight. So that's an interesting event. And then on Thursday, we've got Jasper Rees, who's going to be talking about Victoria Wood in his book Let's Do It, which is proving really popular. And of course, the lovely Andrew Cotter next Tuesday and his
Olive and Mabel.
Yes, Oliver Mabel. I mean, they were a bit of a lockdown sensation, weren't they, on that lovely YouTube clip. So yeah, he's with us next week. And then also for children and families, we've got a draw with Rob live stream event, Rob Biddulph. So so we've got some lovely events coming up before Christmas. So there's no need to be bored. There's plenty to do. So thank you again, Sophia, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, as I say, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. And look forward to, as I'm sure you will, to reading the book. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.